ended early Sunday morning with the motorist, a black male, being brutally beaten and kicked by Los Angeles police officers. A beating that continued even as the man appeared to offer no resistance.
All of a sudden, police brutality had a human face, and it was being battered by Los Angeles cops on a neighborhood street in the San Fernando Valley.
Hello. This video was an analysis comparing and contrasting the ideology Singleton and Gray brought to our attention in the films Boys in the Hood and Straight Outta Compton. The ideological aspect we are focusing on during this video is the violent and deadly brutality of minorities at the hands of authority, including, but not limited to, the police. The very people intended to keep us safe. Both of the directors of these films did a beautiful job painting a picture of an ugly truth of what happens when in an impoverished society, when there's no help, because the help is taking advantage of their authority and creates an unsafe environment for those who live in it. So what is this culture that we're speaking on? Well, William Sewell says that culture may be thought of as a network of semiotic relations cast across society, a network with different shape and different spatiality than institutional or economic or political networks. Both of these movies took the opportunity to highlight disadvantages minority has, such as not being able to explain themselves when talking to the police, whereas someone of a different color could take it maybe what people would think is too far and still not suffer the consequences that the minority would have suffered. These two films fall under the right side of the ideological spectrum. I drew this conclusion based off of the emphasis both Boys in the Hood and Straight Outta Compton placed on the differences between the way authority treated minorities, especially black minorities, versus the way they treated whites. As seen in the previous picture, when Jerry, the manager, got in the cop's faces saying, "Hey, what are you doing harassing these black men?" Whereas they said, "We're not doing anything," and immediately got told to get on the ground because I guess the hamburgers and sodas they were holding were very dangerous. In The African Image in Film, Framing Blackness by Ed Guerrerom, he stated, "Finally, it is important to recognize that many of the deepest insights about black film come from hanging out in the social, vernacular world of blackness with all of those friends who live their opinions and insights about black cinema, representation, and cultural production on a daily basis." Basically, how would you know how it felt, what it means, and what you encounter being black until you put yourself in the position that a black person is in? The focus in a society like this is separation in order to establish an unfair hierarchy amongst men. In this case, black versus white. The method both Gray and Singleton used to deliver this bold, uncomfortable, necessary message is explicit ideology. The message is literally spoken by the actors in the movie. For instance, in Straight Outta Compton, when NWA was being interviewed about their music and the presumptuously negative message the reporters claimed the group was delivering, Jason Mitchell, playing Eazy-E, O'Shea Jackson Jr. playing the role of his father, Ice Cube, and Corey Hawkins, Dr. Dre, say that they give the people a voice, share their truth, and that they are victims to circumstances they didn't create from the sheer inability to do so. meaning they didn't go get the drugs. They didn't bring the guns in because they're not even allowed to because it's against the law. They're poor. They don't have any access. So their problems are brought to them. The tone in both Boys in the Hood and Straight Outta Compton was a bold, aggressive, daring tone. I say this because the message that was delivered in both movies was an in-your-face kind of message. There wasn't any looking past it, or it wasn't insinuated. The directors did not make any attempt at whitewashing scenes to make the audience more comfortable. In Straight Outta Compton, excuse me, NWA performed songs such as F the Police. That's a pretty bold message. Basically, you're flat out saying the police aren't here to help us. They're hurting us, and we're against them. That's a pretty bold message. Boys in the Hood had a scene where the kids check out a dead body. Like, that's a lot, but it happens. There's dead bodies because people are getting killed. And if you're not a part of that world, it's easy to think about it like, oh, that does barely happens, or it's just something that somebody said. Boys in the Hood also showed a scene where the baby ran into the street and someone picked her up and took her back to her mother. So you're seeing kids being taken care of actively by parents that are drug addicted, and nobody in the neighborhood is batting an eye. The ideology in these films spoke out loud. Authority is being abused, and a whole world of people is suffering. Before we had the movies that spoke directly to the black voice, Paula Massood said on page 57 of Black City Cinema, African American Urban Experiences in Film, gangster films in particular, and other genres as well, appealed to the sensibilities of the urban African American audience, which by this point made up a large percentage of the box office. The films addressed a spectatorship that was, according to Clyde Taylor, urban, industrial, and modern, and they used familiar iconology to do so. When the abuse of authority through the violence, death, and destruction of an entire people is brought to light on the big screen, it opens up the audience available to review this message. It's happening. It's wrong. Change is necessary. And it does it in a way that can't be ignored and gets the people sympathetic to this message excited, and the people who aren't thinking. Boys in the Hood and Straight Outta Compton were engaging, educational, and insightful. Most importantly, their ideologies were heard out loud and clear through the directors Singleton and Gray. Thank you.